Hi, class. We're going to be talking about some of what we discussed last week in regards to values. I'm going to highlight today your discussion board that you guys have posted on, just kind of covering, highlighting more of the values things and just the reminder that you are people and are going to experience hard things. So let's talk about Mark. Mark, as it says, I'm just going to read your post. Mark is a newly licensed marriage and family therapist. He has recently opened a private practice by himself and is slowly building a client base. One particular week, Mark comes home to find out that his wife and children have moved out of the house, which is pretty devastating, right? Mark doesn't know what to do. Over the next few weeks, Mark begins to feel deeply depressed over the sudden loss and finds it hard to be fully present for his clients. In fact, one particular occasion, a client reported to Mark that she was having suicidal thoughts and didn't know whether or not she could remain safe. In spite of this, Mark failed to complete a suicide assessment due to his own struggles and preoccupations. Finally, Mark has been working with several couples considering divorce and struggles with anger when the topic comes up in the therapy room. So let's talk about Mark. Mark is having a lot of issues, right? He's having his own personal issues aside from his job. Now, there's a few things going on here that are real. Mark is, I can't stand the glare on my glasses. Mark is obviously self-employed. So he's working for himself. He's self-employed. So Mark probably feels like Mark can't not work because Mark needs money to live. So these are things to consider if you're going to choose to do this field as your main job. Like for me, it's my job. It's my income. Whatever that means for preparing for it, for making sure that you are ready for when maybe a rainy day happens or a life event happens. You need to be conscientious of that because stuff will come up and things will happen. Now for Mark, he probably, I don't know the ins and outs of Mark's marriage. I'm assuming their relationship wasn't great because you don't have a great marriage and then your spouse moves out. Maybe Mark was in denial. I don't know. We're all human. We fall short, all the things. So what I'm concerned about though here is Mark is not present with his clients because Mark is devastated. And Mark is missing things that are really important. He missed a suicide assessment. He's getting angry with couples because his own countertransference is coming through. And he's not able to be present with his clients because he's dealing with his own stuff. Now, in a lot of jobs, maybe you could be short with people. Not saying it's right, but you could be short with people. Maybe you could be kind of a downer, maybe be emotional, and it's not going to cost you your job or cost you someone else's life. But in these circumstances, Mark is making poor decisions because he's not thinking clearly. He's not able to be present with his clients, and then he's projecting his own stuff on his clients, which can be detrimental to the clients. And for that one situation where the woman was having suicidal ideation, that's a potential lawsuit. She could have harmed herself and he would have been held responsible or liable. He's not doing his due diligence as a clinician. His own personal things are getting in the way. This is like red flag central, right? And so, whether something like this happens to you, maybe not the exact circumstances, I hope none of that actually happens to you, but something happens in your life or you're supervising somebody else and something like that happens in their lives, you need to be prepared to have these hard conversations, okay? Because you don't want to risk everything or lose your practice or something, or have someone lose their life because a clinician can't be present. Our jobs are really important. We hold a lot of power, a lot of influence. We have a huge responsibility to our clients. And that is why we take so long to get licensed. It's such a journey because we really need to make sure that we are prepared for what's to come and the liability that's associated with it. And so it's not to be taken lightly. It's not to be taken lightly that you're under the supervision of somebody else's license. It's really important. And so when life things happen, you need to know when to tap out. Mark, unfortunately, maybe wasn't paying attention to things leading up to this point. And then it happened, and Mark needs to know when to tap out. And so, like I maybe mentioned briefly during COVID time, I was working a lot because, it was an odd season for all of us, right? Very hard season. So I had my kids here at home doing school. Then I wasn't really in my office because everything became virtual. So I was working a lot from home. But my schedule literally was managing my kids' education in the morning. Then I would take them to daycare. Then I'd come back home and then I'd work. And then I would do the same thing every day. And my schedule didn't typically look like that prior to COVID. So with that being said, it was very like mundane, everything. And it was very stressful time because we were all cooped up, right? All of us were. We were cooped up for quite some time. And so I realized at that moment, like, I cannot have kid clients because I am tapped out with kids. Like, I am irritated. I am there was just a lot going on. Like, I just can't. Like, it's just too much for me right now. I can't. And so I made that delineation. I made that line. Now, luckily my whole caseload wasn't children or anything of that nature, but like I was able to make that call because I knew it just wasn't in my best interest. It wouldn't be in my clients, like those featured kid clients' interests. Like, I just couldn't. And so sometimes you're just going to have to make those kind of calls with clients, or make that kind of call with a supervisor or your own practice to say, you know what, I'm going through this season. I'm in a stage of grief. Something's going on in my marriage. I can't have couples. I'm projecting too much, because it's not fair to your clients and it's not good for your clients. And you're making that decision in the best interest of your clients. Could that affect you financially? Possibly, depending on what you're doing or how you're doing it. But it's not about that at that moment. It's about what's legal and ethical. And so for Mark, because he's just starting out, there might be this pressure of like, I need income. And I get that pressure. There is that pressure there when you work for yourself. But that's where we have to be mindful of those things that can happen as clinicians and potentially being self-employed, that you're going to have to make hard calls or hard decisions that could affect you financially, or you need to prepare ahead of time for when maybe a season comes where you do have to make those calls, right? Because again, we hold a huge responsibility in the work that we do and the potential relationships that we encounter, and our personal lives really can't affect what we're doing in the counseling room. And if it is, that's where we run into major, big problems. So I just wanted to kind of process through that again. I didn't want to re-go over the chapter again. I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. Our next discussion board talks about religion, and talks about, a person, a clinician getting saved, having an encounter with Christ, and then feeling like her therapy room is now her mission field, and how that can make clients uncomfortable and feel judged, or all the different things. And trying to think about like what you do as a person may not be exactly how you operate in the therapy room. But I firmly believe, like, I see all different kinds of clients. I talk about my faith when it's appropriate to talk about my faith, when my clients really want to, incorporate that. But like, just because I don't bring my faith into every session doesn't mean Jesus isn't with me in my session, and the Holy Spirit's not with me, and that the Holy Spirit isn't giving me discernment or words to say, or, just allowing someone to encounter Christ, whether I'm verbally saying those things or they're just having a positive encounter with me, and them knowing, like I graduated from Cal Baptist, all those kinds of things, knowing that about me, is sometimes all I can do, because that's what's appropriate and that's what's legal and ethical. And if you don't feel like you can do that, then you really need to think about, do I want to be licensed, right? Maybe I just go directly into like more of a Christian setting, where like I work at a church, I don't need a license. That might be the route you need to go. But when you're held to a legal standard by the state of California or by the Board of Behavioral Sciences, there are certain things you cannot do. Like, again, Jesus isn't taken from you just because you enter a therapy room. He's in you. But how you convey that to others is where it's going to potentially be a problem. And so things to think about. hard things to think about, because again, I think we think, oh, some people think when we get in this field, this is how it's going to be, and it may not be exactly how you think, and you are going to have to face a lot of different situations in your office that you maybe thought, I would never talk to a person dealing with this, or I would never be around a person that does that. I'm telling you, everything under the sun is talked about. And it's something for you really to consider and think about. Really soul search yourself, and be ready to show compassion and grace and mercy and understanding to people who are very different than you. And for some of you, you're like, oh yeah, that's no big deal. And that's great. For others of you, that might be challenging and maybe nerve wracking, but that is why it's so beautiful that for a good chunk of time, you'll be under supervision. You won't be alone in it. There'll be people coming alongside you to support you, to help you. And it can be very uncomfortable at times. But you will learn and you will grow. And again, to walk alongside someone in a hard situation is really a beautiful thing and a privilege. So I can't say that enough. I can't stress that enough. If you ever have questions about this, or you're nervous about this, please feel free to email me, ask me a question. I'd love to walk you through that or talk to you about it, because it can be challenging. But I think overall, when you allow the therapeutic process to happen, it really is beautiful. And hopefully your clients get so much out of it and they're able to help themselves, which is really the whole goal. So I hope you have a good week, and I will see you next week.